Hi there, welcome to this build of the Ion flying wing. Now this is a great Peter Fisher design from the late 1950s, and originally it was a free flight, and we've made it 2-channel RC, and it's going to be powered by this lovely Pt10 55, and we're building it from a great set of plans that I got from Derek Scott's website, and if you have a look in the description below there'll be a link to his website where you can find these plans. Very reasonable cost. Now, as you can see with all of this laid out here, we've more or less got the construction finished. In the last video we made an exhaust and muffler, and prior to that we got the hatches and underneath finished, and we've got this lovely grip here that we can use to launch the plane, because underneath otherwise there's not a lot to grip it, and I really don't want to be launching it underhand. So what are we going to do in this video? Because essentially this is ready to cover, or almost ready to cover, but there's a couple of very small jobs I want to do first. Now the first one, and I may well regret doing this, and you may think, what is he doing? But I want to think about the CG and how I'm going to balance this wing. Now the CG is, let me just check, okay, the CG is back here on this wing, and I have a real dislike of balancing models on wingtips, on fingertips. I just find it not a very accurate way to balance a model, and I find that depending on how you tilt your fingers and that, you can get different results. It's just something I don't like. Now on my King Combat flying wing I made a couple of stands, and I put pins in the ends of the wingtips and balanced it like that. Just put the pins in, put them on stands, and then it would rock back and forwards, and you could just move the battery to get it to balance. Well, this I can't do because the CG's here. The wingtips is too far behind the CG, and I don't want to be sticking pins or trying to do something in the leading edge. I just don't see that as being very practical. So what I'm going to do, and yeah, you might think I'm crazy, but what I'm going to do is, where the CG is on this, which is essentially here, coming across here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a couple of, or a block of balsa and a small piece of carbon fibre tube with a rod that will just go put up into that, so that I can just have a couple of legs to balance it on, like this, on the table. So it'll just rock backwards and forwards on those legs. And I know that I've got the right position, and I'm not moving my fingers or tilting the fingertips to try and get it right. I know I could put little dots or something under there, but so I could try and see it and feel it, but I just thought I'd have a go at making a couple of removable legs that will add very, very little weight to the overall structure, and the legs will be removable. But anyway, I will pull something together and we'll have a look at that. Now once I've done that, I want to mock this up. So I want to get the fins on the end, and I will probably stick these on with double-sided sellotape. Just stick them on for this exercise, because I don't want to permanently glue them on. I want to get this covered, I want to get these covered separately and then glue them on. It'll be so much easier. So I'm going to get the wingtips on, I'm going to get the ailerons on, we're going to get the servos put in, the radio equipment and everything, just see how this balances. I get a feeling this is going to be slightly nose heavy. I mean, we've still got quite a lot of covering to go on the back here behind the CG, so that will make a difference. But if it is quite a bit nose heavy, I might put in a few gussets and a little bit of strengthening on the back there. Far better I do that than end up putting a lump of lead, which actually doesn't do anything to the structure of the model. So I will get these legs mocked up and we'll have a look at that, and then we'll start to mock this up and see where the CG is naturally falling and what we need to do to hit the sweet spot that is specified on the plans here to get this to fly right. Right, well, let's have a look what I've done. We've got the CG here marked, and that, as I said, is what is specified on the plans. So at least for a starting point we need to meet that CG, and to get this to balance, what I'm thinking of doing is I've cut a small block of very light balsa and I've drilled a hole in that with my pillar drill so it's lovely and square, and I've just put in a short piece of carbon fibre. You can see it's not glued there, and this is a tube. And what I'm going to do is I've got a leg which is a piece of dowel, and I think this is 6mm dowel. Yep, 6mm dowel with a bit of wire, music wire in it, which is a really snug fit into that carbon fibre tube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue this into place like that, and if we line this up with the ruler we can see the centre of the hole on the carbon fibre is absolutely on the CG. So I'm going to do that both sides, and then when I come to balance this I can put in a leg either side. Oops, let's just get that in. A leg in either side, and I can balance it on those two legs. Now I can just take that out when I want to fly it. I'm going to seal the top of that so that oil and stuff won't go to the inside of the wing, and I think that will be a really good solution for being able to balance this accurately. So as I say, I can just put it onto the two legs, one either side of the fuselage. Now, flat bottomed wing, so this is absolutely perpendicular with the underside of the fuselage here. Because of the dihedral, there is a very, very slight angle out away from the fuselage, minuscule, but that won't make any difference to us balancing it. It would if it was forwards or backwards, but as I said, this is perpendicular to the underside of the wing, so it'll be absolutely fine. So I'm going to get that glued in, make another one for this side, and then we'll have a look and see how it works. Right, well, I've now got those blocks put in with the bits of carbon fibre tube, and you might, when you watch this video, think I've lost the plot, but at the end of the day it costs nothing to do this. It's a trial. If it works, that's fine. If it doesn't, we'll put aside and you won't see it in another video. But there's no downside to trying this. It's not even adding any weight particularly. Okay, maybe a gram in total, but it's not going to affect the actual wing itself. So we've got the two legs, and like I say, you know, as model makers, it's good if we try different things. Some will work, some probably like this won't work very well, but we'll see. You know, it's just interesting to try, really. Now hopefully these won't fall out. There we go. So now we've got it sat on the legs, and yeah, if I have the front wheel just over the front of the bench, and we can see from this that actually this is already nose heavy, and we haven't even got the engine in it yet. Admittedly, we've got servos, we've got elevons, we've got the tips, but if we just kind of simulate a little bit of weight at the back, we can see that is still nose heavy. And if we just, there we go, now we're going a little bit, still a little bit nose heavy. But I think this, there you go, look at that, that looks pretty, that was almost balanced there. So I think this will be quite useful when we get it all set up. And like I say, if not, we haven't lost anything. So we've got those, and we'll try that. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fit the engine. I've already made a start at that. I've sanded out, cut out some of the necessary holes for the needle valve and the muffler. We'll take a quick look at that, and and the strengthening piece that I've done so we don't lose a bit of this front end. We'll have a look. So we got this muffler extension made up in the last video. And what I've done now is I've cut out a little bit of the cheek here for the pipe to stick out, and I've put in a hole to allow the needle valve to operate, to go in, and that fits in there pretty nicely now. I'm quite pleased with the way that's looking. I won't put the needle valve in, but it is lined up, and I think that'll be really good. It just adds a little bit of a snarl, I think, to the wing, and hopefully with this going up like this we'll get rid of a lot of the oil. Now I'm slightly concerned that I've weakened this area here. We can see there's only a thin little bit of balsa, and that does wobble. So I've just made up a 1mm piece of plywood, and I'm just going to stick that on the inside, and that mimics those holes and cutaways. And I've just chamfered this edge here so that it really kind of blends in, and I don't think that will be overly visible on the finished model, particularly when the engine's in. So I'm going to get that glued in now, and I'm going to get the engine bolted in, and then we're going to mock up the rest of the wing to how it will be when it's finished, with the radio in and the battery and everything, and we'll see how this thing balances out and whether we need to do much to get the CG right. Well, this is all together now, and it's really exciting to see how it's taken shape, and this is literally everything now that is needed for this model. I haven't put the fin on because, as I've said previously, I'm going to cover it first, but you can see what this is going to look like, and I find it quite exciting. Now I'll say this is everything bar the covering, of course. So we're going to be covering this in laminating film and then tissue. So the fin I will put on where it's going to end up, where it's going to reside eventually. And now I will put in my balancing legs and we'll see if this is nose or tail heavy. I've got a feeling it's going to be a little bit nose heavy, but we will see. Now if we just bring this forward, I think that's still in camera, isn't it? Bring this forward and rest it on the legs, and you can see that's well nose heavy at the moment. Now I don't think this is necessarily down to how it's been built. I mean, we have added a little bit of balsa here, but fairly light balsa. I think it's probably because we haven't got the wheels and the wire that is shown on the plans at the back here to allow it to do sort of rolling starts or rolling takeoffs. So that would have, the landing gear on either side would have added quite a bit of weight. Now if I put this clamp on the back there, that I think brings it more or less to where we need to be. Now that is pretty well balanced, I would say. I'm quite pleased with that. So it's not lurching forwards or backwards. So essentially we're short of a clip. We can just clip it on the back and we'll be done. Now let's see how heavy this is. This is 18 grams. It's not a huge amount, but it's significant. And I think we have to remember that the CG is here, so a vast amount of the covering on this model is going to be behind the CG. And it wouldn't surprise me if once we've got all this covering on behind the CG, and including the elevons and the fins, that it doesn't actually just bring it up to balancing on that CG. Because it's surprising how much it adds up, particularly with the polyurethane finish. So, but I mean, at the moment that is definitely nose heavy. Now if we have a look in the radio hatch, I will just take off, if I just come in a little bit, take off the hatch. We can see we've got the battery here, the receiver here, and we've got a battery just tucked in the side here, which has just slid forward. I'll put this on the bench and we'll have a better look. Okay, well this is how it was set up as I was balancing it, with the receiver right back and the battery just tucked in at the side, so as far back as possible. There will be some foam and it will be attached a little bit more securely than it is now, held in foam and maybe a little bit of Velcro. But the battery or the receiver won't go any further back. But what I'm thinking I might do, just to cover ourselves, is if I just take out the battery and if I take out the receiver, what I'm thinking I might do is just put a little bit of a slot in the bottom here. Is that showing up? My hand's not in the way. Let me just, so a little bit of a slot in the bottom there, which will allow this battery to slip through, and I'm going to put in a couple of pieces of small balsa here just to hold it, so we can actually slide the battery back just a little bit further if need be, and just get a little bit more weight further back. Whether it will make that much difference, because it's quite a light battery anyway, I don't know, but I'll do that. It's easy enough done. Right, well, I've just made a little bit of a pocket at the back here, just a couple of pieces of balsa and a stop at the end, so the battery now is slid in there, putting a little bit of weight further back. To be honest, the weight is fairly negligible, so I don't really think it's going to make a great deal of difference. But what we can do is put the hatch on and just try it again. It's still going to be nose heavy, but it might have made just a little bit of difference. And let's just, and we've got to put the fin on the back as it would be. Oh, we've got the wheel, so we need to bring it forward just to the edge of the bench. Now you can see it's still nose heavy. If we put a clip on, actually that has made a difference, because that clip doesn't need to be as far back as it was. But my honest opinion is that this will balance itself out once we get the covering on. And we've got that pocket. We can always put a little bit of weight, a little bit of lead in that pocket if needed, if it made more difference than the battery. But like I say, I think the covering itself will take care of that. Well, I think this has been a really valuable exercise to not only make our balancing sticks, for want of a better word, and to see how that works. And I think only time will tell with that whether it's actually useful or not. But first impressions are it actually was quite handy. And also it's been quite good to get it mocked up and to get an understanding of the weight distribution and where we are with that at the moment. And it's clearly nose heavy, but hopefully, as I've said, once we start to get the covering on the back here, that weight distribution will shift a little bit and bring us to where we need to be to hit this sweet spot. It might be that we have to add just a little bit of weight to the tail of this, and it might be that the slot that I created for the battery, we end up putting a little bit of lead in. Hopefully not, because I hate to add weight or lead to a model. I do more or less anything to not do that, but if we have to, we have to. So anyway, I hope you found this useful and interesting, and I think I'm going to draw this video to a close now, and I think I'm going to need to spend a few hours outside with my sanding sticks and just get this really nice and smooth and ready to be covered. And actually I need to just paint inside the cockpit black before we do that windscreen. So I'm quite looking forward to getting this sanded, and then I am really excited to start covering it. And in the next video we're going to start putting on, or we're going to do the laminating film, get all of that done. And I'm intrigued really to see how it works on this curved wing. It might be a little bit tricky, so yeah, we'll see how that goes, but it's bound to be interesting and informative. So anyway, thanks very much for watching, and please come back and see how we get on pulling together this fantastic futuristic looking ion. Thanks very much for watching.